We
All right,
just stayed
well-
home and watched them talk to each other.
Well, thank you very much for you guys attending. We very much appreciate it. To get started, a brief introduction of myself. My name is Robert Kazarek. I'm a certified residential real estate appraiser. Our appraisal company, KLW Appraisal Group, we're headquartered in Buffalo, New York. And we were hired by the city to perform the citywide reassessment. So a little bit of history about me. I've been an appraiser for approximately 30 years, specializing in residential properties all across New York State. Our company also has partners in a full commercial appraisal firm, and we've performed appraisals of pretty much every property type across New York State and the Northeast. We also do this type of work, reassessment work, with municipalities to do either full municipal-wide reassessment projects, or we also assist assessors in some of their functions. So like we might collect building permits and value building permits or things like that. So with the city of Glens Falls, we were hired to perform a citywide reassessment. We started this work last summer, where we visited every property in the city to review the information that we have on file about every property. We've taken photographs of all the properties in the city and evaluated them to make sure that the information that we have on file appears to be accurate and up to date, to make sure that, you know, when we start off with the information about properties, it's as good as we can be. Okay, but again, we're just viewing these properties from the road, or, you know, walking on the sidewalks. From there, the process of a reassessment is, you know, we do a revaluation. We come up with a new assessed value. What we want the assessments to be is representative of market value, okay? To be what's called the equalization rate, to be at 100%. Currently, for 2021, the city's equalization rate was at 75%. What that means is, if your assessment is $75,000 on your property, that means that because it's a partial valuation, 75%, that indicates that the value of your property is $100,000. Okay, so the assessment doesn't equal market value. What we want to do is bring everything up to market value. It makes it easier to, when you look at it, you don't have to think about doing any math. You know, the value is $100,000. Well, that's what you should be able to think that you'd be able to sell that property for. Okay, what the property's value is. So through the fall and currently, we've reviewed sales data that occurred from January 1 of 19 through July 1 of 2021. Why that's important is to understand that the city has a date evaluation. By law, they adopt certain dates in the assessment calendar. The valuation date is the 1st of July for the prior year, okay? So we just consider sales up to July 1st of 2021. We're not considering any sales that occurred after that when we do our valuation and our modeling. Excuse me. So we look at, when we value property, we look at each subject property, your houses, right? And then we look at comparable properties that sold, and we compare your houses to houses that sold. And our models will make adjustments for differences in physical characteristics. So if your house is a little bit bigger, it might indicate that your house is worth more than the property that sold. If it's, you know, smaller, the same thing. And we make adjustments for differences in overall condition, square footage, the land, any other additional improvements like garages, decks, porches, that sort of thing. So now that we're finalizing these, the next step will be every property owner will receive a letter in the mail. It's called an assessment disclosure notice. What that notice will tell you is what your current assessment is on the property, what its equalized market value is. So the letter will show the math calculation. So if you're assessed at 75, it'll tell you that the current value or market value is 100,000. And then it will have an estimate of what your tax liability was for last year. And then there'll be another column that will have the new assessed value, and then another estimate of what the tax liability will be. So what happens when a town is reassessed, it changes the taxable value. of the city. What that will do is it's going to change the tax rate. So a simple example is if the entire city doubled in value, okay, the taxable value was doubled, the tax rate would be cut in half, okay, and then everybody would pay the same amount of taxes. So as we do our reassessment, the taxable value of the city is going to go up, which means the tax rate will come down. So that's why we put in this calculation. Because let's face it, if our tax liability was, if we only paid $1, no matter what our houses was worth, nobody would care what their assessed value is, right? But that's not the case, because we pay taxes based on what our properties are worth. So this flyer here, it shows an example of what happens, of kind of what could, different scenarios of what could happen. So just because your assessment goes up doesn't mean that your taxes will go up. Okay, there is the chance that your assessment may go up quite a bit based on the market activity in your neighborhood, where you may end up paying a little bit more in taxes. It could be that your assessment goes up and you end up paying right around the same. Or the scenario does exist and people don't believe it, but your assessed value could increase and your actual tax liability goes down. So how that happens is let's say the taxable, or the citywide, the taxable value of the city goes up by 50%, okay? If your assessment goes up by anything less than 50%, your tax liability will actually go down. If your assessment goes up by more than what the entire city goes up, then you will end up paying more, okay? So, and if you go up the same as what the city averages, you're gonna end up paying the same amount, okay?
So recently, there's been a huge jump in the values of a lot of the houses around. Some in my neighborhood, some elsewhere. Do we know that that's going to stay that way? I mean, if we get assessed on the basis, like my next door neighbor sold her house for a lot more than anybody thought she was gonna be able to get for it. And so I would probably be affected by the sale of her house. Do we know that high plateau is gonna remain? And if it doesn't, and I end up paying higher taxes, and the values of the houses come back down, what do you do then?
We're looking at the value as a snapshot in time, okay? So as of July 1st, what is the value of those properties? So now, like you said, if your house is very similar to your neighbor's house, it's sold for a lot more than anybody thought, right? Is that going to affect your assessed value? Yes, it will. But it's also going to affect everybody else's assessed value, okay? So it's not like just because her house sold for so much more, you're not the only one increasing, right? It's going to affect more than just you. It's going to affect a number of people. So if it affects everybody equally, then it doesn't affect your taxes. It will affect your value. Now, as far as value goes, if the city state does a regular program of reviewing that information on what happens, the relationship between assessed values and sale prices, they can make the assessor can make adjustments to, that property type or that neighborhood, if it sees that there's a big change. So by maintaining regular review, we'll keep the assessments in line of where they should be. And do we know if this is going to stay? We have no idea. I think the New York State Office of Real Property Tax Services does analysis of the equalization on an annual basis, and they, 4 years ago? It'll be 4 years ago in 18, I think 18, it showed like a decrease in overall value in the city. And then after that, then there was a bit of an increase, and a lot more over this prior year. Like I said, the current the 2021 equalization rate was 75%. New York State has indicated that if the reassessment wasn't done, the equalization rate would drop much further down. meaning that the market in the city has appreciated so much that it would affect that equalization rate quite a bit. So yes, properties have been appreciating, have been going up, and your new assessment is probably going to reflect that, but it's not just you, right? It's gonna affect everybody.
Okay. There was another issue for me. I had my house sided with, whatever,
Okay,
vine siding.
okay,
I also had a back porch that when I bought the house was rotten,
okay,
dangerously rotten. And I had it ripped off and a deck put on.
okay,
And we were told at the time that there was no need to even file any paperwork to have permission to build the deck, and that it would not come into play in terms of assessment. So how is that factored? I mean, I feel like now I've made these improvements and everything is going up, and I'm gonna be assessed on those improvements as anybody would be. And yet I had been told when I made the improvements that that would not be the case.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that part of it, okay? So we know as an appraiser and as a homeowner, maintenance has to be done to a house, right? If it's wood siding, it has to be painted. You know, roofs only last so long. So what we look at when we're evaluating property is the overall condition. So just because a house is resided doesn't mean it takes it from, you know, normal condition to, you know, excellent condition. It takes it probably from normal condition to normal condition.
Except I could show you the pictures. It made a huge difference.
I mean, yes, it might have, you know, sometimes houses are in really, they look like they're in really poor shape because they haven't been maintained, and then you do, you know, so it might have been in fair condition, now it's normal condition. But just because somebody replaces a roof or does maintenance, that doesn't create a trigger to increase an assessment or change in overall condition rating. So I tend to agree with that just because you sided your house that's not gonna be a trigger to, you know, jack the price up of the property. What we see oftentimes is the lack of maintaining a property hurts the value more than it enhances it by doing that repair. Mm-hmm. So, you know, if you reside the house and put your house up for sale, somebody's not gonna say, oh, I'm gonna pay you so much more money because you just resided the house. But if the house is, you know, if somebody comes to look at it and it needs repair, they're gonna say, well, we're not gonna pay that much for it because we have to immediately do this work. So they're gonna pay less to acquire the house because they know that they're gonna have to replace a roof or do siding or do something. So also included in this assessment disclosure notice will be kind of a highlight of information of what the notice means, okay? And then after the notices are received, we offer the opportunity for property owners to meet with us, to sit down to review how the assessment was developed, if you have questions, okay? To schedule an appointment and sit down with myself or one of my associates. And we can discuss what the comparables that were used, how we came up with that value. Oftentimes we hear from people because while a house might look like it's in overall average condition on the outside, we don't know the inside, right? So the house might be damaged on the inside for some reason and we don't know. Or, you know, the house could have, you know, newer siding, newer windows, newer roof, taken care of on the outside, well maintained, and it might be well maintained on the inside, but it might have the original kitchen from 1920, right? So those are things that we don't know that we like to hear about. So we ask people to bring photographs or evidence of information that they think that's not accurate. Bring that to our attention during the meeting, like dated photographs, so we know that they were recent. A property survey if you think the square footage isn't right, things like that. Also on the city's website, on the assessment page, there's a link to what's called Image Made Online. And what that is a database of all the properties in the city. So you can look up the information that we have on your property. And if you have a residential property, there's a feedback form. And there's a little feedback button in the upper left, and it says feedback, and you click that, and you can go through and fill out, you know, or click the topic, like overall condition, or like number of bedrooms, or number of bathrooms, and let us know, I don't have 4 bedrooms, I have 3 bedrooms, right? Or I don't have one bathroom, I have two bathrooms. I converted a bedroom into a bathroom. And then we review that information and we make the changes we feel is appropriate. So like in the past, why I say that is people will contact us and say, you know, I don't have a 2,400 square foot house. I have a 1,200 square foot house. And it's not 4 bedrooms, it's 1 bedroom. And we look at the picture and it's a 2-story old style house and we're like, okay, it's not 1,200 square feet and it's much bigger, you know, the first floor might be 1,200 square feet. And it turns out that they're telling us that because they don't use the second floor. They only use the first floor, right? So that's not how we would look at it, right? So I mean, these things do happen. And occasionally, you know, sometimes things happen where, and this is a true story, where we collected information and somehow the data got entered twice. And the people are like, we don't have 2 houses. And we go and look at them, oh, sorry, you know, things got entered wrong. So, you know, the informal meetings and this feedback page is a way for us to refine our numbers to make sure that we're capturing it right. Because the goal of the reassessment project is to reassess all the properties in the city and the new assessment to reflect current fair market value or market value as of July 1. We're not trying to increase the city's ability to raise taxes because that can't happen. There's property tax caps in New York State where, you know, a municipal budget can only go up by 2% max per year unless there's a override, right? So this isn't like a hidden way of generating revenue. The city is going to put together a budget, which everybody knows about because it gets published, right? This is the amount of money that the city needs to provide the services that it does for the people of Glens Falls. So that's the money that they're going to collect in taxes. So, and how it gets divvied up is through the assessment process. Is through assessing with the tax rate. So
the last assessment was done when?
2005.
Okay. And then you spoke about the city needing to do, I don't know the term you used, but so once we do this, it would behoove the city to stay somewhat current every few years, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Or,
Yes.
okay. So we don't get into a predicament where we've gone
So long without doing a
so
reassessment,
long without
right?
doing.
And you can imagine, I mean, just over the last 2 years, the changes in the real estate market have been significant.
Correct.
Okay, so that's not just for the last 2 years. Like, so you're taking 15 years of changes, you know, into account when we do this reassessment. So what we find in sometimes in certain towns, you might have a property type that may become more, and this happened in the 70s, 80s, where ranch style housing really came into high demand. And so the value of ranches was appreciating much higher than split level style houses, right? So if that's occurring, but you're not doing a reassessment, you're not capturing that, different property types may be appreciating at different levels, or different neighborhoods may be appreciating or depreciating at certain levels, right? So the longer you go without updating the information, the more skewed everything can be. So while some neighborhoods may be going up, you know, may increase, and I'm just throwing numbers around it, may increase, you know, 20% over 10 years, other neighborhoods may have only appreciated 10%. But if their assessment was developed and not updated, you know, you might have 2 properties, both, you know, 15, 20 years ago were worth $100,000, and one neighborhood appreciated at a higher rate, and that property is now worth $200,000, while the other property, you know, there was appreciation, but it's only worth $150,000. But those 2 houses, even though their current market values are different, are paying the same tax liability. Okay, so what the reassessment does is kind of reset that to get everybody back to the current fair market value. So everybody's paying their fair and equitable share, right? We don't want to over assess anybody and people pay more than what they should based on their assessed value. And we don't want to under assess people so they're not paying what they should be. So it's leveling the playing field again. And things over time can get, get skewed quite a bit.
Especially commercial, I would think. That's what's going on in the city, right?
Mm-hmm.
How many total parcels is the city?
5,800 plus or minus.
Okay. I guess I'll wait and see what my sheet looks like. And then I'll see if I make another appointment.
So that informational sheet that will come with that assessment disclosure notice, we'll have a phone number on it for people to call to schedule an appointment. Now, our appointments, we're going to schedule them in person, and we also offer like Zoom meetings or phone interviews. It's a scheduling service that we use, so the people that you contact, they're not going to have answers to specific questions for you, okay? They'll just schedule an appointment for you, and then you can come in and talk to us about your specific property. And then we'll review that information, and what will then happen is then everybody that comes to a meeting will receive another letter to let them know the results of that meeting. And then if people feel that that property is not assessed, is over-assessed, then you can go through the formal grievance process, which happens every year. It's in May. It's the fourth Tuesday in May. And you fill out an application, present your information, or submit it to the Board of Assessment Review for them to look at it. And the Board of Assessment Review are made up of residents of the city that have understanding of real estate. There might be a real, I don't even know who's on your board. It could be a realtor, it could be attorneys, it could be accountants, could be property owners that understand real estate. So then they would make a determination.
So your timeline is to get those letters out, have people opportunity to come in and discuss if they don't agree, and then a final letter be sent, but that'll give them all plenty of time in the event the grievance happens in May.
Right.
You still have
those letters will go out around May 1st. So those, and that will only be if the assessment changes between March 1st and May 1st. Or if you have a meeting with us, we tag the file to make sure the letter's generated. So you'd get a letter, if the assessment doesn't change, you'd get a letter stating that, basically your assessment didn't change.
So the first letter is coming out soon, and then adjustment letters would come out May 1st?
May, yes.
Okay.
Yes. So the next step is the assessment disclosure notice, and that will come out like March 1st.
Oh, okay, March 1st.
Also, property, at today's meeting, the one during the day, with the image mate where they can go in and change their inventory, you had mentioned commercial can't.
Correct.
And what to do if they can't.
Correct. That's correct. That's correct. So the Image Made Online feedback page is for residential property owners only.
Right.
So we have an email address where you can contact us at municipal@klwgroup.com if you have a commercial property and you have questions on it, on the inventory, on the information that's on file. So that you can shoot an email out for that.
Are there any other questions?
Any other questions?
No?
So did the city pick a bad time to do this? With the market going up?
Yeah.
I guess there's no good or bad time
Right.
to do it, but it just seems like the housing stock in the city of Glens Falls has really done well. I mean, a lot of people have sold and made quite a bit of money.
That's happening all over the country. It's not
There was a
localized.
house in my neighborhood that sold for something like $30,000 more than the asking price, and they didn't even come and look at it.
I have stories, people not looking at it, paying cash,
Yeah.
no inspection, not even looking in the inside of the house until after they close. Just, yeah. So, but it's not, this is happening all over all over the country, and it's a function of two things: very low interest rates, and also low inventory. So a lot of people have refinanced and made improvements to their house, and now they're at a lower interest rate. Then, like, well, we just fixed our house. Why should we move? We have a really good interest rate. We're going to stay here. And so you also, when interest rates drop more, it lends to more people being able to be potential purchasers. So you increase the purchasing pool, reduce the supply. I mean, it's simple economics. You don't have the supply, but you have a huge demand. Prices are going to go up. So, but what we're looking at again, it's you know, citywide. Everybody's affected. So, you know, if everybody goes up the same amount, like I said, if the value of the city doubles, if we just take everybody's assessment, increase it 50%, right? The tax rate gets cut in half, and everybody pays the same amount of taxes. So, but our goal is, you know, our goal has nothing to do with taxes. Our goal has to do with adjusting the reassessment so they reflect current fair market value, and get the city back to 100% equalization. And then moving forward, the assessor can review all the information that's happening, and very good at compiling data on sales and paying attention to that. And if an adjustment needs to be made, then it can be made.
There's a question from somebody on YouTube.
Yeah, he says the record for my home is incorrect. I will correct it. Finished space above the attached garage was not counted. The space is considered a bedroom. Is there a definition for a bedroom?
A bedroom definition. There is not a legal definition of a bedroom. So, in the finance world, a bedroom has to have 2 points of egress. So, you know, like a door and a window. For certain lending institutions, for it to be considered a bedroom. There's a lot of people who say, well, you know, it doesn't have a closet, it can't be a bedroom. Legally in New York State, there is no definition that says a bedroom has to have a closet. Okay, so, and if you think of the housing stock in New York State, all newer houses that are built, you absolutely, like, it better have a closet, or otherwise it's going to have a functional obsolescence. But if you think about houses that were built in, you know, early 1900s, late 1800s, they didn't have closets; they had bureaus. So there's a lot of bedrooms that don't have closets because they were designed that way, because the lifestyles have changed. So to be a bedroom, there should be 2 points of egress. You don't walk through the bedroom to get to another room. So that would be as close of a definition that we'd have.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you so much for coming. We appreciate it. Thank you for having us on the Glens YouTube channel. We hope we reach as many people as we can, and we'll have another meeting Saturday morning. Hopefully have more people, and you know, we want to get the information out. If you do have any questions, or want to use that feedback page, please do. Any questions you can, as far as exemptions or anything like that, they would have to go to the assessor's office, but you know, if you want to shoot an email to us at the municipal @KLW group, we'll review everything that we can and try and answer everybody's questions. Great.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.